America is at the crossroads. Something different, something unusual is happening in this nation. Last night in California, Governor Gavin Newsom, in a blistering speech on President Donald Trump sending the troops into Los Angeles. This is Tyrone Bowman Live. Welcome to the program. Newsom said, quote, Donald Trump chose theatrics over public safety, end quote, in deploying the National Guard to respond to protests in Los Angeles. So according to CNN, I have a video. It's about 10 minutes in length of the governor addressing the nation last night. And I'm going to make a prediction. It may be true and it may not be true, but I think California's Governor Gavin Newsom will become the Democratic nominee for president in 2028. Here we go.
I want to go in and listen to Governor Gavin Newsom.
What's happening right now is very different than anything we've seen before. On Saturday morning, when federal agents jumped out of an unmarked van near a Home Depot parking lot, they began grabbing people, a deliberate targeting of a heavily Latino suburb. A similar scene played out when a clothing company was raided downtown. In other actions, a U.S. citizen, 9 months pregnant, was arrested. A 4-year-old girl taken, families separated, friends quite literally disappearing. In response, everyday Angelenos came out to exercise their constitutional right to free speech and assembly, to protest their government's actions. In turn, the state of California and the city and county of Los Angeles sent our police officers to help keep the peace. And with some exceptions, they were successful. Like many states, California is no stranger to this sort of unrest. We manage it regularly and with our own law enforcement. But this, again, was different.
I'd like to believe that what we do at MSRO is different.
Like many states, California is no stranger to this sort of unrest. We manage it regularly and with our own law enforcement. But this, again, was different. What then ensued was a use of tear gas, flashbang grenades, rubber bullets, federal agents detaining people and undermining their due process rights. Donald Trump, without consulting California law enforcement leaders, commandeered 2,000 of our state's National Guard members to deploy on our streets illegally and for no reason. This brazen abuse of power by a sitting president inflamed a combustible situation, putting our people, our officers, and even our National Guard at risk. That's when the downward spiral began. He doubled down on his dangerous National Guard deployment by fanning the flames even harder. And the president, he did it on purpose. As the news spread throughout LA, anxiety for family and friends ramped up. Protests started again. By night, several dozen lawbreakers became violent and destructive. They vandalized property. They tried to assault police officers. Many of you have seen the video clips of cars burning on cable news. If you incite violence, I want to be clear about this. If you incite violence or destroy our communities, you're going to be held to account. That kind of criminal behavior will not be tolerated. Full stop. Already more than 220 people have been arrested, and we're reviewing tapes to build additional cases, and people will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Again, thanks to our law enforcement officers and the majority of Angelenos who protested peacefully, the situation was winding down and was concentrated in just a few square blocks downtown. But that's not what Donald Trump wanted. He again chose escalation. He chose more force. He chose theatrics over public safety. He federalized another 2,000 Guard members. He deployed more than 700 active U.S. Marines. These are the men and women trained for foreign combat, not domestic law enforcement. We honor their service. We honor their bravery. But we do not want our streets militarized by our own armed forces. Not in LA, not in California, not anywhere. We're seeing unmarked cars, unmarked cars in school parking lots, kids afraid of attending their own graduation. Trump is pulling a military dragnet all across Los Angeles, well beyond his stated intent to just go after violent and serious criminals. His agents are arresting dishwashers, gardeners, day laborers, and seamstresses. That's just weakness masquerading as strength. Donald Trump's government isn't protecting our communities. They're traumatizing our communities. And that seems to be the entire point. California will keep fighting. We'll keep fighting on behalf of our people, all of our people, including in the courts. Just yesterday, we filed a legal...
You're watching Tyrone Bowman Live. California Governor Gavin Newsom last night addressing California regarding the unrest and the coming in of the National Guard. I'll be right back after this short break. Before I continue with the governor, there's a movie called Siege, starred Denzel Washington and Bruce Willis. People thought it was just a movie. It was about the militarization of taking over New York City. People just thought it was just pure entertainment. They really didn't pay attention to it. Ladies and gentlemen, the militarization of America is now in full effect. People think this is a game. They think it's a joke. It's going to get worse before it gets better. People were warned, and oftentimes when warning signals are going forth, people don't pay attention because too busy being caught up in the socialism and antics of life. But they were warned that this was coming. And in many instances, people have no one but to blame but themselves. Trump told you all exactly what he was going to do, and you didn't believe him. Let's get back to the governor.
Weakness masquerading as strength. Donald Trump's government isn't protecting our communities. They're traumatizing our communities. And that seems to be the entire point. California will keep fighting. We'll keep fighting on behalf of our people, all of our people, including in the courts. Just yesterday, we filed a legal challenge to Donald Trump's reckless deployment of American troops to a major American city. Today, we sought an emergency court order to stop the use of the American military to engage in law enforcement activities across Los Angeles. If some of us could be snatched off the streets without a warrant, based only on suspicion or skin color, then none of us are safe. Authoritarian regimes begin by targeting people who are least able to defend themselves, but they do not stop there. Trump and his loyalists, they thrive on division because it allows them to take more power and exert even more control. And by the way, Trump, he's not opposed to lawlessness and violence as long as it serves him. What more evidence do we need than January 6th? Ask everyone. Take time, reflect on this perilous moment. A president who wants to be bound by no law or constitution, perpetuating a unified assault on American traditions. This is a president who in just over 140 days has fired government watchdogs that could hold him accountable for corruption and fraud. He's declared a war on culture, on history, on science, on knowledge itself. Databases quite literally are vanishing. He's delegitimizing news organizations, and he's assaulting the First Amendment. And the threat of defunding them At threat, he's dictating what universities themselves can teach. He's targeting law firms and the judicial branch that are the foundations of an orderly and civil society. He's calling for a sitting governor to be arrested for no other reason than to, in his own words, for getting elected. And we all know this Saturday, he's ordering our American heroes, the United States military, and forcing them to put on a vulgar display to celebrate his birthday, just as other failed dictators have done in the past. Look, this isn't just about protests here in Los Angeles. When Donald Trump sought blanket authority to commandeer the National Guard, he made that order apply to every state in this nation. This is about all of us. This is about you. California may be first, but it clearly will not end here. Other states are next. Democracy is next. Democracy is under assault before our eyes. This moment we have feared has arrived. He's taking a wrecking ball to our founding fathers' historic project. 3 co-equal branches of independent government. There are no longer any checks and balances. Congress is nowhere to be found. Speaker Johnson has completely abdicated that responsibility. The rule of law has increasingly been given way to the rule of Don. The founding fathers, they didn't live and die to see this kind of moment. It's time for all of us to stand up. Justice Brandeis, he said it best. In a democracy, the most important office, with all due respect, Mr. President, is not the presidency, and it's certainly not governor. The most important office is office of citizen. At this moment, we all need to stand up and be held to account, a higher level of accountability. If you exercise your First Amendment rights, please do it peacefully. I know many of you are feeling deep anxiety, stress, and fear, but I want you to know that you are the antidote to that fear and that anxiety. What Donald Trump wants most is your fealty, your silence to be complicit in this moment. Do not give in to him.
What's happening in America is nothing new. During the civil rights movement in the Deep South, when the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., along with all of the individuals a part of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, were protesting against the evils that were taking place against Black people, it wasn't until the news media decided, upon the request of Dr. King, to come down to Birmingham, Alabama, and other places like Arkansas, where you could literally see for yourself how the vicious, hatred Klansmen and racists of that hour and day, what were they doing? Turning water hoses on women, sicking dogs on children, dragging people in the streets, bombing churches. And what did the Christian preachers do? They sat back and said nothing. Instead, they were condemning Dr. King, and they were condemning Black people for marching peacefully. And they said that they were going against the grain. Why didn't they just shut up and go in their churches and pray? They justified the racism of that day, just as they're justifying everything that's going on in this nation now. Think about it. This is coming to your city and to your town real soon. If you think California is an isolated place, it is not. And all the people who caused this will be someplace running and hiding and complaining about it. It's too little, too late. You voted for him. He was reelected. He told you what he was going to do. We told you about Project 2025. You didn't believe it. We kept telling you about Vice President Kamala Harris. You all wouldn't listen. And sad to say, the Latino community, they turned against Kamala Harris. Why? Because of their hatred and their bitterness. And even Black men, by the hundreds of thousands, would not vote for her because they were mad, because when she was the Attorney General who did her job, and a lot of Black men were locked up and et cetera, et cetera. Well, let me ask you this question. Why didn't you have that same vitriol and hatred for people like, well, I won't mention the name. Why didn't you have that same vitriol and hatred for the white attorney generals and the white prosecutors and the white district attorneys who locked black people up like they were being cattle rounded up on a farm because they thought it was easier to attack a woman. Y'all screwed up America, and now you will reap what you have sown. Never surrender, never quit.